Recent and disturbing new polling has reaffirmed the fact that the Republican Party has devolved into a literal authoritarian cult of personality of tens of millions of people, and it could not be more dangerous. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so strap in. This one is very sobering. It's very, potentially upsetting to have this consistently reaffirmed. But I want to show you two slides of a YouGov poll, a recently released YouGov poll, YouGov being one of the most reputable pollsters in the country. And it pertains to the Republican primary, the Republican nominees. And the first slide I want to show you is not quite as sobering as the next one, though I think in tandem they're both pretty bad. So the question is, with respect to voting for Republican nominees, among those who say honesty is very important, okay? So basically, if you're voting for the Republican nominee and honesty is the most important thing to you, who are you going to vote for among the current Republican candidates? So you have Tim Scott at 4%, you have Mike Pence at 5%, you have Vivek Ramaswamy at 6%, you have Ron DeSantis at 17%, and then you have Donald Trump at 61%. So again, to be clear, this YouGov, this highly reputable YouGov poll is asking people who are going to vote in the Republican primary, Republican voters, hey, listen, if honesty is very important to you, how are you going to vote? And the overwhelming majority say Donald Trump, the least honest political candidate, if not in all of U.S. history, certainly in modern history on either side of the political spectrum. That's where their values are, a complete incongruence. Honesty is extremely important to me, therefore I'm going to vote for a pathologically lying, malignant narcissist. Incredibly dangerous, the cognitive dissonance. But as bad as that is, take a look at this next one. Feel what they tell you is true. Top answers. Okay, so basically, among the following candidates of people, who do you feel tells you the truth the most, okay? Out of religious leaders, conservative media figures, friends and family, and Trump. So 42% of people say religious leaders. I feel like religious leaders tell me what's true. 56% say conservative media figures. I feel like tell me what's true. 63% say, I feel that friends and family tell me what's true. Brace yourselves. 71% say that Trump tells them what is true. More so than religious leaders, more so than conservative media figures, more so than friends and family. Donald Trump, the pathologically lying, malignant narcissist, they say they trust him more than religious leaders, more than lifelong conservative media figures whom they probably followed and respected for decades until now, and even friends and family. We talked about this before. A lot of people say it's a pejorative. It came up recently in a debate that I had with Sitch and Adam, who are centrist. They say left-leaning centrist. I think a lot of people would say right-leaning centrist political commentators. It's not a pejorative. Sometimes we say it tongue-in-cheek. Sometimes certainly we say it insultingly. The Republican Party is literally a cult of personality. Multiple professional psychiatrists, psychologists, social psychologists, sociologists, people who actually have formal education and work experience with cults say that the GOP has become a cult of personality. This is really important, okay, because cults are incredibly dangerous, and the GOP is effectively the biggest and most dangerous cult in the history of this country. There is no cult. The Manson family was nowhere near comprising tens of millions of adherents. The GOP is a cult, and there's a correlation between right-wingers and political violence. The Republican Party has advocated, or a startling number of members of the Republican Party have advocated that violence might be necessary to reclaim the country. So when you take all these constituent pieces and put them together, this is incredibly dangerous, and this is really important. There is no counterpart for this on the left. There is no counterweight to this on the left. There is nothing like this on the left. Nothing in terms of the size, the scale, the scope, the depth of belief. There's nothing like this. So there will be people who will try to downplay this or create a false equivalence. reject it outright. Demand that they prove there's anything like the facts and figures and the polling associated with the Democratic Party or President Biden or the left. They will fail to produce it every single time because this is a uniquely Republican problem. This is a uniquely MAGA problem. But because we live in a country with these people, it's becoming a U.S. problem. The crazy beliefs of people who think that Donald Trump is a beacon of honesty and that they trust Donald Trump more so than friends and family and conservative thought leaders, if you're conservative, and religious leaders, if you're religious, that's incredibly dangerous. And the effort that it takes to de-radicalize members of a cult is extraordinary. You look at any literature about cults, the amount of concerted efforts, right? Because you're essentially trying to deprogram somebody, you're trying to de-radicalize them. You can't have an exchange with somebody who's in a cult and a true believer. It usually takes multiple, like if you have a family member who's in a cult, you need like 3 to 5 trusted people giving concerted, aggressive pressure to try to de-radicalize them, right? So it takes a disproportionate amount of time, effort, attention, empathy, love, scrutiny. It is impossible to de-radicalize the GOP as it currently stands the way that most cults and most cult members are effectively de-radicalized. That's what makes this so uniquely dangerous. You are not obligated to respect it. You are not obligated to downplay it. You are not obligated to pretend that there is an equivalent on the left. There is none. This is something that's incredibly dangerous. It's disgusting. And while you should express love for those who are in that cult, if they are people you love, you are not obligated to love and respect the cult itself. It's disgusting, it's despicable, it deserves to be mocked relentlessly, and it needs to be politically isolated and neutralized. This needs to be removed from our politics. And the first step is holding Donald Trump accountable for his various crimes and improprieties, regardless of what the consequences are. Donald Trump can't be president. Donald Trump has to lose elections. Donald Trump has to be indicted for crimes for which he is credibly accused, regardless of what may come. That is the first fundamental step to defeating and de-radicalizing the MAGA cult.